What the hell is this, Sarah? I slammed the restaurant's expense report onto the granite countertop, the sound echoing in our otherwise silent, sterile kitchen. 4 a.m. and I was already knee-deep in the shit. Not the usual kitchen shit, grease and spoiled milk, but the kind that rots your gut. Sarah, my wife, my partner, the woman who swore till death do us part. She didn't even flinch, just kept her back to me, meticulously arranging goddamn microgreens on a plate like it was the most important thing in the world. It's the monthly expenses, Mark. What's it look like? Her voice, usually warm honey, was edged with ice. Don't play dumb with me. I jabbed a finger at the report, nearly tearing the paper. This boutique kitchen supply for $1,500? And another culinary workshop in Napa for $2,000? Sarah, we run a diner, not a Michelin-starred palace. What the hell are you buying solid gold spatulas? She finally turned, and even in the harsh fluorescent light, she was still beautiful. Damn it, Sarah was always beautiful. High cheekbones, eyes the color of a stormy sea, and a body that could make a saint sweat. Right now, though, her eyes were cold, hard chips of that stormy sea. It's for the restaurant, Mark. Investing in quality, keeping up with trends. You know, the things you're always too busy with the books to worry about. Trends? Sarah, this is a charge for La Fleur de Nuit perfume. $300 for perfume on a restaurant expense report? Are you spraying it on the damn burgers now? My voice was rising, cracking, the anger bubbling up like lava. She let out a short, humorless laugh. Don't be ridiculous. Then explain it, Sarah. Explain why there's a goddamn perfume charge. Right next to a receipt from Elegance Leather Goods for a wallet that costs more than my damn car payment. And both of them are marked chef supplies. Silence. A thick, suffocating silence that filled the kitchen, heavier than the smell of last night's fried onions. Then, she finally spoke, her voice low, almost a whisper, but each word a shard of glass. Maybe they are for the chef, Jean-Pierre, that slick, snake-hipped Frenchman she hired 6 months ago, promising he'd bring authenticity and flair to our greasy spoon. Flair, all right. Flair for my wife, apparently. For the chef, I repeated, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. Why the hell would the chef need a $300 bottle of perfume and a designer wallet on the diner's dime, Sarah? She finally met my eyes, and there it was. Not just coldness, but something else. Defiance? Guilt? Maybe a twisted kind of pity. Because Mark, she said, her voice flat, devoid of any emotion. Because Jean-Pierre is special. Special. That's what she called him. Special. Like my whole life, our whole marriage, our whole damn restaurant was just ordinary. Expendable. That's how it started. The explosion. The fallout. The unraveling of everything I thought was real. And it all began with a damn expense report and a bottle of perfume. Let me rewind a bit. To before the perfume. Before Jean-Pierre. Before the taste of betrayal coated my tongue like cheap whiskey. Let me tell you about Sarah. About our life. About the Blue Plate Diner. And how it all went to hell in a handbasket. Faster than you can say, check, please. Sarah and I, we were high school sweethearts. Cliché, I know, but true. She was the head cheerleader, all sunshine and smiles, and I was the quiet football player, the strong, silent type. Opposites attract, right? For a while, they sure as hell did. We grew up in this small town in Pennsylvania, a place where everyone knows your name and your business, whether you want them to or not. We were Mark and Sarah, a unit like peanut butter and jelly, like Friday night football and apple pie. After graduation, most folks around here either went to the local factory, joined the army, or just stayed. Stuck in the same rut, same faces, same everything. Not Sarah. She had bigger dreams, brighter lights in her eyes. She wanted to go to culinary school, open her own place, make something special. There's that word again. Me? I was happy enough working construction, building houses, building a life, brick by brick. But Sarah, she was my brick, my foundation. So I worked double shifts, saved every penny, and we moved to Philly. She went to culinary school, I found a decent union job, and we started building our real life together. The Blue Plate Diner was Sarah's dream. A classic American diner, but with a touch of her. Not fancy, not pretentious, just good, honest food, cooked with passion and served with a smile. We scraped together every dime, borrowed from family, and took out a small business loan that made my stomach churn every month. But we did it. We opened those doors 5 years ago, and slowly, painstakingly, we built it into something. A local favorite. Our baby. Sarah was the heart and soul of the place. She was a natural. Charismatic, charming, knew everyone's name, their order, their kids' birthdays. She could charm the pants off a grumpy old biker and make a fussy toddler giggle. And she could cook. Damn, could that woman cook. Comfort food elevated. Simple dishes, done perfectly. Her blueberry pancakes were legendary, her meatloaf was a religious experience, and her apple pie, well, let's just say it could make a grown man weep. Me? I was the backbone, the numbers guy. I handled the books, the payroll, the suppliers, the repairs, the endless paperwork that comes with running a small business. I wasn't front-of-house material like Sarah. I was more comfortable in the back, in the kitchen, making sure everything ran smoothly. We were a team, perfect balance. Or so I thought. For years, it worked. Hell, it thrived. We were working our asses off. Sure, sunrise to sunset, 6 days a week. But we were building something together. Our marriage, our diner, our future. We were happy. Or at least I was. Looking back now, maybe I was just complacent. Blinded by routine, by the daily grind, by the comforting illusion of US. Things started to shift subtly at first about a year ago. Sarah started spending more time at the diner, earlier mornings, later nights. New menu ideas, she'd say. Trying to streamline operations. I didn't question it. Running a restaurant is hard work. I figured she was just stressed, pushing herself to keep things going. I was proud of her ambition, her drive. Then came Jean-Pierre. Chef Jean-Pierre Dubois. His resume read. Trained in Lyon, Michelin star experience, specializing in modern American cuisine with a French twist. French twist in a Pennsylvania diner? Seemed a bit much. But Sarah was adamant. We need to elevate our menu, Mark. Stay ahead of the curve. Jean-Pierre is exactly what we need. Looking back, I see it now. The way her eyes lit up when she talked about him. The way her voice softened, took on a different tone. But I was too busy, too trusting, too damn blind to see the signs. I hired him. Against my gut feeling, against my better judgment. For Sarah. Because I always wanted to make her happy. Jean-Pierre was charming. In that smarmy European way. Tall, lean, with dark, slicked back hair and eyes that seemed to linger. He spoke with that thick French accent that women seemed to melt over. He was all smiles and compliments for Sarah. All condescension and thinly veiled contempt for me. I was Mark, the business partner, the guy who didn't understand culinary artistry. He made it clear from day one that he and Sarah were on a different level, a higher plane of food, I guess. And I was just the help. The menu did change, subtly at first. A daily special of French onion soup, a new appetizer of escargots, which, thankfully, no one in town ordered more than once. Then bigger changes. Artisanal, this deconstructed, that infused the other thing. The prices went up. The portions went down. The regulars started grumbling. But Sarah was ecstatic. This is it, Mark. This is what's going to set us apart. What it set us apart from was our customer base. Our loyal, blue-collar, meat and potatoes crowd. They weren't interested in deconstructed meatloaf or artisanal gravy. They wanted the classics. They wanted Sarah's meatloaf, the real deal, not some fancy-pants Frenchified version. I tried to talk to her about it. Gently at first. Honey, are you sure about these changes? I'm seeing a dip in our lunch crowd. She'd brush me off. Short-term pain for long-term gain. Mark. Trust me. Jean-Pierre knows what he's doing. Trust him. That was the mantra. Trust Jean-Pierre. Then the whispers started. From the waitresses, from the busboys, from even old Mrs. Henderson. who came in for coffee and gossip every morning. Sarah and the chef. They're getting awfully close, don't you think? He's always in her office, door closed, for hours. Saw them laughing together in the back alley yesterday. Looked like more than just work talk. Gossip. Small-town gossip. I tried to ignore it, dismiss it as jealousy, as idle chatter. But the whispers kept growing louder, more persistent, like a low hum that you can't quite tune out. And then, there were the little things I started noticing myself. The way Sarah would linger in the kitchen, watching Jean-Pierre cook, her eyes softer again, but not for me. The way she'd laugh at his stupid jokes, jokes that were lost in translation, jokes that weren't even funny. The way she started dressing differently. More effort. Higher heels, tighter dresses, more makeup. Not the Sarah I knew, the Sarah who was happy in jeans and a t-shirt, covered in flour and grease. But still, I pushed it down. Ignored the red flags, the gut feelings, the mounting evidence. I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to face the possibility that my Sarah, my wife, my partner, could be unfaithful. It was easier to bury my head in the sand, to focus on the books, on the diner, on anything but the growing knot of dread in my stomach. Until the expense report. Until the perfume, the wallet, the chef supplies. Until that cold, hard look in Sarah's eyes and the word special hung in the air between us like a death sentence. That morning, after the fight in the kitchen, I didn't go to work. Couldn't. I just sat in the living room, staring out the window, the gray morning light reflecting the grayness in my soul. I replayed our conversation, her words, her tone, her lack of remorse. It was like talking to a stranger. The Sarah I knew, the Sarah I loved, was gone, replaced by this cold, distant woman who was capable of this. I needed proof, not just expense reports and whispers. I needed to see it, to hear it, to know for sure that I wasn't just being paranoid, that I wasn't just imagining things. I needed to know the truth, no matter how much it hurt. So I went to the diner. Not at lunchtime, not during the dinner rush, but in the afternoon, the dead zone, when things were usually slow, when Sarah was usually in her office, catching up on paperwork. I told myself I was just checking on inventory, that I needed to sign some supplier invoices. Excuses. Lame excuses. But they were enough to get me in the door. The diner was quiet, almost empty. A few stragglers nursing coffees at the counter. Old Mr. Peterson reading his newspaper in his usual booth. And a young couple giggling over a milkshake in the corner. Brenda, our head waitress, a sassy redhead with a heart of gold, was wiping down tables, humming to herself. "Hey, Mark," she said, looking up as I walked in. "Something I can get for you?" Brenda had been with us since day one. Loyal, hardworking, and sharp as a tack. She'd seen it all, heard it all, and knew more about the diner's inner workings than I did, sometimes. "Just checking in, Brenda," I said, trying to sound casual. "See how things are going. Sarah around?" Brenda's smile faltered, just for a second, but I caught it. A flicker of something. Pity? Awkwardness? "She's in the kitchen," Brenda said, her voice a little too bright, a little too forced. "With Jean-Pierre. Working on some new specials, I think." She avoided my eyes, busying herself with rearranging sugar packets on the counter. In the kitchen, of course. Where else would they be? The kitchen, the heart of the diner. And now, apparently, the heart of my wife's affair. "Right?" I said, nodding slowly, trying to keep my voice even. "New specials. Makes sense." I paused, then on impulse, asked, "Everything okay? Brenda? You seem a little off." Brenda finally looked at me. Her blue eyes filled with a mixture of sympathy and concern. She hesitated for a moment, then leaned closer, lowering her voice. "Mark, honey," she said, her voice soft, almost a whisper. "You deserve to know." My heart pounded in my chest. I knew it. I knew it was true. But hearing it from someone else, someone I trusted, someone who had no reason to lie, it was like a punch to the gut. "Know what, Brenda?" I asked, my voice barely above a breath. She glanced towards the kitchen doors, then back at me, her eyes filled with a sad kind of knowing. "They're They're not just working on specials in there, Mark. I saw them. Yesterday. In the walk-in freezer. The walk-in freezer. A cold, sterile metal box usually filled with frozen meat and vegetables. Not exactly a romantic setting. But apparently, for Sarah and Jean-Pierre, it was private enough. Saw them doing what, Brenda? I asked, my voice tight, strained. I needed to hear it. The ugly, brutal truth. I needed to hear it to believe it. Brenda took a deep breath, her gaze steady, unwavering. Kissing, Mark. More than kissing. Hands everywhere. He was touching her. Like they were alone in their own world. Didn't even notice me when I walked in to grab some ice cream. Her voice trailed off, her face flushed with embarrassment and disgust. Ice cream. She walked in for ice cream and walked in on my wife cheating on me with the French chef in the walk-in freezer. The irony was almost comical. Almost. My stomach churned. My head swam. The diner, the quiet afternoon, Brenda's words. It all seemed to blur, to spin, to lose focus. I felt like I was going to be sick. The walk-in freezer. I repeated, my voice hollow, numb. They were in the walk-in freezer. Brenda nodded, her eyes filled with sympathy. I'm so sorry, Mark. I really am. I didn't want to say anything, but you deserve to know. I did deserve to know, and now I did. The whispers, the expense reports, the changes in Sarah, Jean-Pierre's smarmy charm, Brenda's eyewitness account. It all clicked into place. The puzzle was complete, and the picture it painted was ugly, heartbreaking, and infuriating. Thanks, Brenda. I managed to say, my voice cracking. Thanks for telling me. I turned and walked towards the kitchen doors, my legs feeling heavy, leaden. Each step was like wading through treacle. I could feel my blood boiling, my fists clenching, my jaw tightening. I didn't know what I was going to do, what I was going to say, but I knew I couldn't just walk away. Not anymore. I pushed open the kitchen doors, the clatter echoing in the sudden silence. The kitchen was spotless, gleaming stainless steel, the air thick with the smell of spices and simmering sauces. Jean-Pierre was at the stove, stirring something in a copper pot, his back to me. Sarah was leaning against the counter, watching him, her arms crossed, a soft smile playing on her lips, a smile that hadn't been directed at me in God knows how long. They didn't notice me at first. Lost in their own little world, their own little affair. I stood there for a moment just watching them, taking it all in. The easy intimacy, the unspoken connection, the betrayal. It was like watching a scene from a movie about someone else's life, someone else's pain. But it wasn't a movie. It was my life, my pain, my wife, my betrayal. I cleared my throat, the sound harsh, grating in the quiet kitchen. They both jumped, turning to face me, their faces registering surprise. Then, something else. Guilt? Defiance? Maybe a flicker of fear. Jean-Pierre straightened up, wiping his hands on his pristine white apron. His smile faltering, but not completely disappearing. Mark, good afternoon. What brings you to our humble kitchen? His voice, always smooth and condescending, was even more so now, laced with a hint of mockery. Our kitchen. He actually said our kitchen. The audacity. Sarah just stared at me, her eyes wide, her face pale, her smile completely gone. She knew I knew, and she knew I was going to explode. Our kitchen, Jean-Pierre? I said, my voice low, dangerous, the anger finally breaking through the numbness. Is that what you call it now? Our kitchen. Jean-Pierre shrugged, that infuriatingly Gallic shrug that seemed to dismiss everything I said as insignificant. It is where the magic happens, no? Sarah and I, we are creating something special here. Something you, perhaps, do not fully understand. Special again. That damn word. Special. I repeated, taking a step closer, my fists clenching tighter. Yeah, I'm starting to understand special, all right? Special like perfume on the expense report special? Designer wallet special? Walk-in freezer special? Sarah gasped, her hand flying to her mouth, her eyes widening even further. Jean-Pierre just smirked, a slow, arrogant, infuriating smirk. Ah, so you have been investigating. Very American of you, Mark. Always with the business, the numbers, the details. You missed the big picture, no? The big picture, Jean-Pierre? I stepped closer again, until I was nose to nose with him, my anger radiating off me in waves. The big picture is my wife, you slimy son of a bitch. My wife, the woman I trusted, the woman I built this whole damn life with. And you think you can just waltz in here, with your fancy French accent and your fancy French food, and steal her away from me? Steal my life? Steal my wife? Jean-Pierre didn't back down. He just stood there, smirking, his eyes cold, calculating. Steal? Mark, please. Sarah is a grown woman. She makes her own choices. If she chooses to be with someone who appreciates her talents, her passion, is that stealing? He glanced at Sarah, a smug, possessive look in his eyes. Or is it liberation? Liberation. He called it liberation. Like I was some kind of jailer, holding Sarah back from her true self, her true desires. Like our marriage, our life together, was some kind of prison she needed to escape. Liberation. I roared, losing it completely, the anger finally exploding, raw and uncontrolled. You think screwing my wife in the walk-in freezer is liberation, you French piece of shit? You think buying her perfume and wallets on my dime is liberation? You think you can just take what's mine and call it liberation? I lunged at him, my fist connecting with his jaw with a satisfying crack. He staggered back, his smirk vanishing, replaced by a look of shock and pain. Sarah screamed, jumping between us, her hands outstretched, pleading. Mark, stop it. What are you doing? What am I doing, Sarah? I yelled, my voice shaking with rage and betrayal. I'm defending my wife. Or at least I thought I was. Turns out she doesn't need defending. Does she? She's too busy liberating herself in the walk-in freezer. Sarah's face crumpled, tears welling in her eyes. Mark, please. It's not like that. Not like that. I laughed. A harsh, bitter, broken laugh. Brenda saw you, Sarah. Brenda saw you too in the freezer. And the expense reports. Don't lie to me anymore. Just tell me the truth. Is it true? Are you sleeping with him? Silence. Again. But this time it was different. Not a thick, suffocating silence, but a thin, brittle silence, stretched taut, ready to snap. Jean-Pierre was rubbing his jaw, his eyes narrowed, watching us both, like a predator assessing its prey. And Sarah just stood there, tears streaming down her face, her mouth trembling, unable to meet my gaze. The silence stretched, longer and longer, until it became unbearable. Until I couldn't take it anymore. Until I knew, without her saying a word, that it was true. All of it. The whispers, the expense reports, Brenda's story, the coldness in her eyes, the word special. It was all true. My wife was cheating on me, with the French chef, in the walk-in freezer. And in that moment, something inside me broke. Not just my heart, but something deeper, something fundamental. My trust, my faith, my belief in us, shattered into a million pieces, scattered across the kitchen floor, irretrievable, irreparable. Okay? I said, my voice flat, devoid of emotion, the anger draining away, replaced by a cold, empty weariness. Okay, Sarah, I get it. You want special. You want liberation. You want him. I gestured towards Jean-Pierre, who was still rubbing his jaw, but now his smirk was back, wider, more triumphant than ever. Fine. You can have him. You can have special. You can have liberation. You can have whatever the hell you want. I turned and walked out of the kitchen, out of the diner, out of our life, leaving Sarah standing there, crying, and Jean-Pierre standing there, smirking in our kitchen, leaving it all behind. The diner, the marriage, the dream, everything, gone. Just like that. Over a bottle of perfume and a walk-in freezer rendezvous. I didn't go home. Couldn't. The thought of going back to our house, our bed, our life together, knowing what I knew now, it was unbearable. I drove. Just drove. No destination in mind, just away. Away from the diner, away from Sarah, away from the pain. I ended up at a bar. A dive bar on the outskirts of town, the kind of place where the beer is cheap, the music is loud, and the conversation is minimal. Just what I needed. I ordered a double whiskey, neat, and sat at the bar, staring into the amber liquid, swirling it around and around, watching the ice melt, watching my life melt away with it. The bartender, a woman with tired eyes and a kind smile, saw my face, saw the storm brewing behind my eyes. She didn't say anything, just slid the whiskey over to me, and then another one without me even asking. She knew. Bartenders always know. They see the broken souls, the lost souls, the souls drowning in their own sorrows. They're the silent witnesses to the tragedies of everyday life. I drank, and drank, and drank some more. The whiskey burned going down, but it didn't burn enough. It didn't burn away the pain, the betrayal, the image of Sarah and Jean-Pierre in the walk-in freezer. It just numbed it, dulled it, pushed it down for a while. Around midnight, the bar started to fill up. Locals, mostly. Guys in work boots and flannel shirts. Women in jeans and tired faces. All looking for a temporary escape from their own lives, their own troubles. A blonde woman sat down on the stool next to me. She was striking. Not in a polished, perfect way, like Sarah, but in a raw, earthy, real way. Long legs, a tight denim skirt, a worn leather jacket, and eyes that were the color of, well, I don't know, whiskey maybe. Or maybe just pain. "Rough night?" she asked, her voice husky, low, like gravel and honey. She didn't smile, just looked at me, her gaze direct, unflinching. I shrugged, took another swig of whiskey. "You could say that. Girl trouble?" she asked again. Still no smile, just that steady, knowing gaze. I managed a weak, bitter laugh. "You could definitely say that. Yeah, they're a pain in the ass, ain't they?" she said. Finally a hint of a smile, a wry, cynical twist of her lips. "Worth it, though. Sometimes." "Not this time," I said, shaking my head, taking another gulp of whiskey. "Not this time, it ain't worth it." "Tell me about it," she said, signaling to the bartender for a beer. "Maybe it'll make you feel better. Or at least, make me feel less alone in this goddamn world of heartbreak." So I told her everything. About Sarah, about the diner, about Jean-Pierre, about the expense reports, about Brenda, about the walk-in freezer, about the word special, about the shattered pieces of my life scattered across the kitchen floor. I poured it all out, the anger, the pain, the confusion, the betrayal, the everything. She listened, just listened, didn't interrupt, didn't judge, didn't offer any empty platitudes or cliches, just listened. And every now and then, she'd nod or take a sip of her beer, or just look at me with those whiskey-colored eyes, and I felt heard, seen, less alone. Her name was Maggie. She was a truck driver, drove 18-wheelers across the country, hauling everything from frozen chickens to car parts. She was tough, independent, and surprisingly insightful. She'd seen a lot, lived a lot, and wasn't afraid to tell it like it was. "Sounds like your wife's a fool," Maggie said, after I'd finished my story, after I'd drained my whiskey glass, after I'd emptied my soul to a complete stranger in a dive bar. "Trading in a good man for a fancy-pants Frenchman? Dumb move. Real dumb move." "Yeah, well," I said, shrugging again, feeling a little lighter, a little emptier, a little something. "Guess I wasn't good enough. Not special enough." Maggie snorted, taking a long pull of her beer. "Bullshit. Special is overrated. Real is what matters. Honest. Loyal. Someone who's got your back no matter what. That's special. That Frenchman? He's just flash in the pan. She'll learn. They always do." "Maybe," I said, doubt creeping back in, the whiskey buzz starting to fade, the pain starting to resurface. "Maybe not. Maybe she's happy with flash in the pan. Maybe real wasn't what she wanted anymore. Maggie shook her head, her eyes hardening, losing some of their softness. Then screw her. Seriously, screw her. You deserve better. You deserve someone who appreciates real. Someone who sees you, the real you, not just some business partner, some backdrop to her special life. Easy for you to say, I said, another bitter laugh escaping my lips. You don't know Sarah. You don't know us. We were good. For a long time. I thought it was forever. Forever's a fairy tale, pal, Maggie said, her voice rough, but not unkind. Real life ain't got no forever. It's got right now. And next week. And maybe, if you're lucky, a few good years. But forever? Nah, that's just something they sell you in movies and songs to keep you buying popcorn and records. So what then? I asked, feeling lost, adrift, like a ship without a rudder, tossed about in a storm. If there's no forever, what's the point? What do you do when everything you thought was real turns out to be a lie? Maggie finished her beer, slammed the empty bottle on the bar, and looked at me, her whiskey eyes sharp, clear, and surprisingly hopeful. You start over, dumbass. You pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and you start over. You find something new, something real, something worth fighting for. Maybe it ain't forever, but maybe it's good enough. Maybe it's even better. She paused, a rare, genuine smile finally gracing her lips. And hey, she said, winking at me, maybe you even find someone who appreciates a good, honest, real man. Someone who ain't interested in no fancy-pants French chefs and no walk-in freezer shenanigans. I looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time. Maggie, truck driver, whiskey eyes, real. And maybe, just maybe, she was right. Maybe forever was a fairy tale. But maybe, just maybe, starting over was a real possibility. Maybe it was even a chance to find something better, something real. Start over, I repeated, the words tasting different this time. Not like ash, but like possibility, like a faint glimmer of light in the darkness. Yeah, I said, nodding slowly, a small, hesitant smile finally touching my own lips. Yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe it's time to start over. Maggie grinned, a wide, genuine, whiskey-fueled grin. Damn right it is. Now, how about another whiskey? And then we talk about starting over. And maybe, just maybe, that's exactly what I needed. A shot of whiskey, a shot of truth, and a shot at starting over. Maybe forever was gone. But maybe, just maybe, forever wasn't all it was cracked up to be anyway. Maybe real was enough. Maybe real was everything. And maybe, just maybe, I was finally ready to find out. To start over. To find out what real really meant. Without Sarah. Without the diner. Without the illusion of forever. Just me. And maybe, just maybe, someone like Maggie. Someone real. Someone good enough. Or maybe even better. Only time would tell. And the road ahead? Well, it was wide open. Just like the American highway. And for the first time in a long time, that didn't feel so bad. Felt like a start. A messy, painful, uncertain start. But a start nonetheless. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. For now.